When people think of Australia, they probably don't think of Australian birds first. More likely it's going to be mammals, specifically marsupials, those that have pouches, like this possum. This possum is wild. However, he happens to be at a zoo, and he's probably here so that he can filch some food from some of the zoo animals.
There's one right behind you. Okay, right. He's right under the heel of your foot. So don't step back.
Now, what kind of possum did you call this again?
Brush-tail possum.
Brush-tail.
Here's your little buddy. He's right by your leg.
I don't believe I've heard the term before.
Brush-tail possum?
Yeah. It's new to me.
Well, they're probably the most common possum. They're found right in the middle of cities. They're very adaptable. They live in people's roofs.
Yeah.
So they used to live in, of course, hollow trees. Trees went, so they moved into people's houses.
Make sure you give us good side there.
Doing exactly the same as you did last time.
Well, that's in the script.
Yeah.
Because they have to deal with the toxins. They don't have much.
Now you call them green.
They pick up the green sheen of the leaves. Because these possums don't go back to a hollow during the day. They'll get on a branch like that, maybe a little bit smaller, hang on with one hind foot, put their tail around in a horizontal loop, and put their not to scrape or anything. It's aware of us, but not feeling very threatened. But if we scrape our feet or unzip some Velcro or something, it'll be off. There's something else up there in the bamboo too.
And what sort of possum is this again?
It's a coppery brushtail.
That's what we've been seeing up in the
Yeah.
tree.
I've seen some greens, though. And what's the correct name again?
This is a striped possum.
That's a carnivorous one, right?
This is carnivorous. It's mostly beetle larvae out of dead timber. They will eat sweet fruit and flowers. Wow, they don't often just sit there looking at the light. You beauty.
No, that's much better.
They're not as rare as tree kangaroos, but they're harder to see than tree kangaroos. Around that stump and those very long fingers cross each other. Yeah. Oh, I think we might. He wants to get up to get away, you see. There's nowhere up to go.
Undoubtedly, the animal most closely associated with Australia is the kangaroo. In fact, there are 5 times as many kangaroos in Australia as there are people. The kangaroos actually use less energy when they're moving at speed than any animal its size. They can hit 64 kilometers an hour, that's about 40 miles an hour, and they can do a 25-foot jump. However, They cannot move backwards.
Your babies are back out now.
The thing that everyone knows about kangaroos is that they have pouches for their babies, which are called joeys. In good time, kangaroos are capable of having 3 offspring of different ages all at the same time, 1 in the womb, 1 in the pouch, and 1 at foot. And the mother kangaroo is capable of producing 2 different kinds of milk, 1 for the joey in the pouch and 1 for the 1 at foot, like this one. Kangaroos come in a number of sizes. The grays and reds are standard, wallabies are small, and the pattymellons are teeny.
Have the kangaroo. Hey, get in my backpack. In here. Inside. Oh, get that back, get that back. Don't eat that. Don't eat that. Get that back. Hello, this is me with the kangaroo. Hold on. Wait. That's not for. Give that back.
The wombats are sort of marsupial groundhogs, but they're closer to the size of a beaver. Because wombats are diggers, their pouches face to the rear. That makes sense because it keeps the dirt from getting into the pouch. However, koalas are also closely related to wombats, and their pouches also face to the rear. It's difficult to imagine any advantage for a koala up in a tree having a pouch that faces down. Now everyone knows the story about how the kangaroo got its name. Some European was asking a native in Australia what the name of that particular animal was, and the native said kangaroo, which meant I don't understand. The koalas also have a native name. That is, the koala comes from the native language, and here it means no water, because the koalas don't drink any water. They get all their nutrients from eucalyptus leaves. There are 25 different kinds of eucalyptus in Australia, but they're only able to eat 6 of those.
You're supposed to be out here. Look at those claws. Yeah. I tried to make a video of it.
If you look at the front paws, you'll see that 2 of the fingers are on one side of the hand and that the other 3 are on the other side of the hand. This is obviously for grasping limbs.
Can't live in the wild. There's some kind of disease.
Incidentally, this is a conservation area that we're in. It's open to the public. You can walk along on the boardwalk, same as the koalas doing. The koalas are wild.
Hi.
They're free to go whenever they like.
Craig.
The more you get to know koalas, the more they seem like grumpy old men.
Hannah, where you go get my backpack? You walked all the way over here.
Eucalyptus provides poor nutrition, and there's not a lot of energy for the koalas. This burst of activity is about as much as you can expect. In fact, koalas spend about 19 hours a day asleep. Now, because koalas only eat eucalyptus, they have an odd smell.
They smell like cough drops.
The most vicious marsupial predator left in Australia these days is the quoll. This is the quoll. In the old times, the Tasmanian devil would have been more vicious than this, and it still is on the island of Tasmania. But on the mainland of Australia, there are no more Tasmanian devils. In fact, the devils are fast disappearing due to a cancer that's attacking their faces. Even older than the Tasmanian devils were the Tasmanian tigers. Those are now believed to be extinct. And Tasmanian lions were, marsupial lions, were never seen by Europeans, but they did exist at one time. This is a sugar glider, and a sugar glider, for all practical purposes, is sort of a marsupial squirrel. It can glide from tree to tree, and it does eat sugar. In this case, someone has put honey on the bark of the tree, and that's what's lured this sugar glider down. It's a wild sugar glider, but it's used to getting honey off of this tree in the evening. This sugar glider has heard a sound, and it's a little bit afraid of what that sound might be, and so it's not moving very much right now, waiting to see if there's any danger. These next sugar gliders are in a zoo, and they're very used to being fed by people, and in fact, they're mobbing the people that are offering them some sugar.
You're gonna get on Craig's shoulder.
Now, squirrel gliders are found on the other side of the divide of the ranges I was talking about with these yellow bellies. They're going down the hill into the interior a bit more. Unfortunately, they're also endangered. Their biggest problem...
This is a tree kangaroo. I understand they're fairly common up in New Guinea, but they apparently are less common in northern Australia. The tree kangaroos are basically taking over the niche where primates would be. Tree kangaroos are basically nocturnal and leaf eaters. However, in this particular case, we've got somebody who's awake during the daylight, although it's getting late in the day. In fact, there are two tree kangaroos in this tree, but only one of them is a poser. The other one is hiding a little bit from us. The poser held his pose for a number of hours, and in fact, several groups of people came by and took his picture. The locals were interested in taking his picture too, and the reason is because they're relatively rare. As a matter of fact, one of the locals told me that they hadn't seen a tree kangaroo in about 3 years. This poser held his pose so long, it was just absolutely incredible. People had told us where he was going to be, and it must have taken us at least a half an hour or so to walk there. And then from the time that we took his pictures, we went out and collected up the girls who were shopping in the local fair, the local market, and we brought him back to this tree, and he was still on the same branch, not hardly moved at all. There is a class of mammals called monotremes. Monotremes lay eggs, and there are only 2 monotremes left on the face of the planet, and both of them are in Australia. This is one of them. It's the echidna, or spiny anteater. The other monotreme is the platypus. The platypus was long thought to be a myth. In fact, when specimens were brought back to Europe, the Europeans believed that they had been cobbled together from various different animals, and in fact, some fakes had been done that way. And there's another odd thing about the platypus beyond its egg-laying and general morphology. the male platypus has poisonous spurs, and that makes it the only poisonous mammal on the face of the planet. This is the lake that Evan and I staked out. Now, we went out 2 mornings and we saw platypus 2 mornings in a row. But once you see the platypus, they disappear. So look quickly. Here he comes. This next animal is a little bit indistinct, in part because it's night, and the other reason is because it's up about 30 meters or so up in a tree, about 90 feet or 100 feet maybe. It may be difficult to see, but this is a flying fox, a type of bat. Now it's a fruit-eating bat, not insectivorous, but it's quite large, and its face does look very much like that of a fox. That's its face that you can see now, although it's a little bit fuzzy. These things are so big that as they fly over at night, they sound just a little bit like a large helicopter. Here the flying fox is climbing hand over hand up the tree. You know, about 25% of all mammals in Australia are in fact rodents. Many of those are bats like the flying fox, but some of them are mice. Not all of the mammals in Australia are marsupials. The terrain around North Queensland is very volcanic. This crater lake, and it's a volcanic crater, was formed only probably about 10,000 years ago. This lake is Lake Eacham, but in fact there are a number of lakes at about this size or even larger that have volcanic origins. These lakes and the other volcanic features are up on a plateau called the Atherton Tablelands. This next feature is a volcanic vent. In this case, we have a nearly circular hole that's been blown out of the earth, and what's left behind is a deep shaft ending in water. Now that water right now is filled with duckweed, so it'll look quite green when we face straight down into it. When you're in the rainforest, quite frequently you'll look up into a tree and you'll see a large brown blob of some kind. And you'll wonder what that is because it looks kind of like a wasp's nest. But usually it's a termite nest, and that's what it is in this particular case.
It's dawn, and we're in the rainforest. This happens to be part of the Daintree rainforest. The Daintree rainforest in Australia is the oldest rainforest on the face of the planet.
Here's something that you can find in almost any rainforest. It's a strangler fig. In this particular case, you can see the fig roots have gotten quite large and they're surrounding an existing tree. But eventually that tree will be completely strangled and die, and the only thing that'll be left will be the fig tree. This is a much older fig tree, and in this case the original tree that was here, that was the basis for holding this tree up, has already disappeared, and the only thing that's left is the fig tree itself. The fig tree starts out, of course, only as a seed being left behind by some bird or some other animal. And the roots from the fig tree start dropping down into the forest floor slowly. Slowly at first, but once it hits the forest floor, it gets additional nutrients, and then it speeds up its growth, and it begins surrounding the now doomed tree. This particular fig tree is so famous that it has its own name, and it's called the curtain fig. For our last stop, we're coming back to Melbourne. We've got one story that I want to finish out this section with, and that's